Hey guys, so today I'm going to be teaching you how to make my famous whipped mashed potatoes. These are the culprit right here, all ready to go. So tonight I'm going to be pairing mine with some smoked salmon that I made on the stove, also some deep fried catfish, and a little bit of broccoli. Also, you can't forget your gravy, which is still thickening up, so have no fear, that's going to be nice and thick in a minute or two.
Blow it.
Also, if you're wondering, I did put my gravy into one of these glass measuring cups just because it's easy to pour on top of the potatoes. Now let's get into the video. This is one of my favorite and probably my best hands down dishes that I make. My Yambe's all-time favorite side is potatoes. So of course, if he's a potato man, I gotta make the potatoes poppin', right? So I have about 7 large regular russet potatoes in here. So since I used the white potatoes, I went ahead and peeled them off, cleaned them up really quickly. So usually if you're gonna do this, go ahead and put them in cold water, but I was not planning on filming this video, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna be making my potatoes with a little bit of pan-fried salmon for me and my son, and then my husband loves catfish, so I have some catfish here thawing out in a little bit of water and a little bit of seasoning salt. But the first thing you want to do when you're making a dish with potatoes is probably get the potatoes on the stove, because they take a while to boil, especially when you have a lot. One way that I found to cut down the time on these is to go ahead and cut them into fours. So I just cut it in half and then cut it in half again. Drop it back in the pot.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So these are all my potatoes cut up. I'm gonna fill the pot up with a little bit of water just to cover the potatoes. So now that I've added my water, I just went maybe about ½ an inch above all the potatoes. Basically, I'm just gonna go ahead and add a little bit of sea salt just to go ahead and flavor them up. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my lid, and I'm going to put this on the stove on high until it boils. Once it starts boiling, I'm going to reduce the heat and remove the lid. Now the potatoes are almost coming to a boil, but before we get back to the potatoes, I figured I'd show you how I season my potatoes with them. But what I put in them to season them and flavor them and to get the texture that I want is heavy cream and a little bit of butter. And usually I will use these interchangeably. So today I'm going to be using literally heavy whipping cream, and I just get this from my local Ralph's. You can use any brand. If I don't have heavy cream, I'll use half and half. If I don't have half and half, I use milk. Heavy cream is my favorite way to do it, but again, milk 2%, whole milk, all of those pretty much work just fine. So I like to pour my heavy cream and my butter into the pot with the mashed potatoes warm or room temperature. So I'm not going to be using butter. I'm going to be using pretty much a vegan butter, and this is from Earth's Balance, and this works just fine. So if you use regular butter, or if you use margarine, or if you use anything, pretty much any of these will work good. So there are no measurements. I'm going to show you exactly how I decide how much to put in, but I just put a nice healthy scoop in there. This is vegan butter, but again, if you don't want to use as much butter, you'll just use a little bit more heavy cream. Also, now let's go ahead and check on our potatoes. They sound like they're boiling up nice, but they're not. So it takes quite a bit of time to get the potatoes to go ahead and boil. How you go ahead and check to see if the potatoes are even close to being ready is you just literally stick a fork in it. So I'm just going to take one and stick a fork in, and they're still super hard. So you want to get these super duper soft. So you can do this without the lid once they come to a boil. I usually will keep the lid on the entire time. So it's literally been about 40 to 45 minutes, and I feel like they are finally done. I'm just going to take a fork. And when they go all the way through and it kind of feels like they're going to just fall apart, that's exactly when they're right for me, because I don't want any lumps or anything like that. I want them to whip very easily. So I just make sure that they are super, super tender. And then I go ahead and I rinse out all of the, then I go ahead and I drain out all of the water. I've also got my salmon going. It's pretty much done. And then I also have some broccoli that is done. So this is going to be finished in perfect timing. Okay, so this is what the potatoes look like when they're perfectly done. There is a little bit of water in there, but because they're so hot, that is going to turn into steam and rise up for the most part anyway. So I like to take one of these potato mashers, or I'm not even sure what you would call this. I like to go ahead and mash them up. The softer the potatoes already are from boiling, the easier this part is. I've definitely made the mistake of draining my potatoes a little bit too soon, and how I knew they were not ready is because when I did this, it took a lot of work. But because they are perfectly soft, this is not really that hard at all. And they should look pretty much like this, and just in that little bit of time of mashing them up, all of that water that you've seen in there has already evaporated and absorbed into the potatoes. So that's why I said don't worry about straining potatoes or getting all of the water out. So next, this is the butter that I showed you guys before. I went ahead and put it in the microwave for about 10 to 15 seconds. Now I'm just going to pour it in there. This step, again, I do not measure, so just put as much as you want. I do put a lot of butter, but I would say put it in gradually, and you can kind of tell, you know, if you have enough. Just put enough for you, because it's not really the butter, it's more the heavy cream that's going to make it creamy. I'm also going to go ahead and season them up a little bit. So just added a little bit of garlic salt and a little bit of pepper. Now I'm going to take a whisk and go ahead and whisk that together. Feel free to go ahead and taste it to see if you need a little bit more butter, or if it tastes buttery enough, and if you have enough seasoning. Now this is definitely enough butter and enough seasoning for my taste. So I did the same thing with the heavy cream. I put it in the microwave for about 15 seconds so it's not too cold. And I'm just going to pour it in the mixture. This part, you do want to do this a little bit gradually to be sure that you don't make your potatoes too runny. If you pour it all in at one time, you can't take it back. So I usually am able to eyeball it and know how much I need. But if you're just starting out, go ahead again and add it gradually, because once you make them too runny, you really can't do anything about that. So this looks like a nice texture here, but of course when you go ahead and serve them, they're going to dry up, so you want to make them a little bit more smooth than this. Now they're perfect. I mean, you can also add a little bit of grated parmesan cheese to yours. I normally don't, but for the sake of this video, what the heck. And this is pretty much the finished result. Usually I will garnish with parsley, but I'm out, so I've garnished with paprika. I'm obsessed with smoked paprika at the moment. But this is how they look. Perfectly whipped mashed potatoes, good to go. Whenever you're reheating them for the next day, I recommend that you put them back into a pot and stir them around with a little bit more heavy cream, opposed to putting them into the microwave. They're gonna taste so good and so fresh. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I'll see you in the next one.